So what I have is my type layer selected, Sign Painter House script, also selected as my font, and white. So I'm going to click and drag here, type in my text, have that ready to go. I'm going to boost the text by giving a stroke to it, and that's all set at 20 pixels white. That's good. Okay. Now I'm going to drag it down a little bit, center it over the wood a little bit more where these kind of cracks are meeting. And I'm going to actually, what I want to do is I can turn on and off this stroke effect. What I want to do is actually rasterize this layer, so I'm going to click on the texture layer and go to type, rasterize type layer. And then now what I want to do is, you can see I have still my effects applied to this now rasterized layer. I used to be type. What I'm going to do is actually control click, and I'm going to hit rasterize layer style. That's, as you can see here in the layers palette, that compressed all of the styles into this single layer, so now this is all part of the same layer. I can't turn it on and off those styles. Those styles have been applied to this artwork. So what I'm going to do next is select the background just by using channel selections in this instance. So I'm going to close this texture layer so I can hide it. I'm going to jump into my styles, and I can see that I have red, green, and blue channels. I'm going to look for the one with the most contrast. Here's the green. So I'm going to option click and drag this green channel layer into this new layers swatch here. Just hit OK. With green copy selected, I'm going to boost the levels to increase the contrast. So I'm going to boost my darks a little bit, my brights maybe a little bit more. Move my mid-tone slider probably closer to the darker area of the curve. Oop. And I'll just hit OK. So with my green copy layer selected, I'm going to hit load channel as selection down here. That's basically selecting the black from the white. Now I'm hitting back to my layers palette here, and I'm going to go down to this create a new layer button. I'm going to hit that. Now I'm turning off this wood layer because I want to see what happens when I fill these pixels that I have selected for my channel. I'm going to go to edit, fill. I'm going to hit black and OK. So right now I have all of the lights selected from the wood layer, and I don't want that. I want actually the dark cracks here to be dark and selected. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to actually do a Command A, and you can see my marching ants around here, and I'm going to nudge this whole thing to select all of the pixels here, and then I'm going to do a Command Shift I, which will select the inverse. Then I'm going to close this layer, and I'm going to do a new layer here in the palette, and then again I'm going to go to edit, fill, and select black and deselect with Command D. So this is the stuff that I want coming through, because of course the paint is not going to drip through, is actually going to drip through these cracks and then not sit on top of them. So this other layer I can just get rid of, and this layer I'll have as kind of a stamp, if you will. So what I'm going to do is actually duplicate this texture layer and keep it hidden. I'm going to call it blending version because I'm going to repeat this effect in the other way that we went over in class on Tuesday. So I'm turning on the wood layer. I have the wood layer and the jig up here selected, and turning on this texture layer. And so what I'm going to do is then Command A and nudge that top texture, that top crack layer, and I'm going to go click this texture layer and just hit delete. Then I'm going to Command D to deselect, turn off the top layer, and there you have what looks very similar to a texture, a painted on texture from a background. So the other way we have to replicate this same effect is to then go to our blending version texture layer here. So a quick and easy way of doing it, per Gordy's information in class on Tuesday, was we could actually double click this blank area here, and that's going to open up our layer styles palette. So of course bevel, emboss, all of these different tools, but where we default here is this blending options area. And what we can do is then go in this underlying layer slider here, and we can actually have some of the darks on this end come through from the layer above it, being referred to in this palette as this layer. So we're able to bring it through. So I can actually grab this slider and start moving it, and you can see over here on the left that some of the darks are starting to come through that top layer. You can actually even option click this little right half of the slider too, to even bring out some of these midtones. And as you can see, this texture layer is really starting to look very convincing and having that background coming through. And so on for the whites as well. You can actually drag these sliders to actually have more of the lights coming through as well, to give more of a believable effect. Actually, we'll kind of refine this a bit, make it a little more rugged there. Perfect. So two ways to go about that. Pick your favorite way, and good luck with that. Finally, what I wanted to demonstrate here, I'm going to go back a couple to get my original texture layer back, is I am going to demonstrate how I can make this look like it's being burned into the wood. So I have this blending version. I'm just going to call it now a wood burn version. And what I'm going to do is actually do a Command A to select all of the screen there. I'm going to nudge it up and down. Now the Photoshop is actually finding the edges for me. I'll go to Edit, Fill. Then I will just fill it with black. So I'm going to hit OK. Command D. So now I have this layer going. I'm going to then change the layer blending mode to this. I'm going to apply the overlay blending mode. So I go up to here in this palette, and I'm going to hit overlay. So this is going to change the layering from normal to overlay on this layer. Next, I'm going to add the bevel and emboss effect. This is where most of my work is going to kind of come. Again, this is more of an art than a science. This is just one of the ways that you could do this. This is the way that has worked for me in the past to be convincing enough to pass. So I'll again double click this, go into my this blank version, this blank area here in layer that I want to start applying layer styles to, and I'm going to hit bevel and emboss. And I'm going to choose, actually I checked bevel and emboss, so that's activating the basic style for it, but what I'm going to do is hit this blank area next to bevel and emboss to go into more levels of detail. So I have here applied an inner bevel. It's set to chisel hard. Also have the depth to be at 344%. The direction is down. You can move it up and down. Down, of course, will work just because it makes it look like it's being branded in there. Also, size here is 9 pixels, and I have 0 soften because it's going to be a very hard edge. So I'll hit OK. Then simply what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this layer here, and I'm going to do an option click drag, and as you can see, Photoshop is previewing that my texture layer is being ghosted, and now I can drop it off here. So what I'm going to do is leave it right here and look at it and say to myself, is this convincing enough? To me, the answer is no, not so much. So in the past, I've always just gone through these layer blending modes and just tried to figure out which ones would kind of work. But the first thing I would do is probably look at this opacity here and say, well, can I drop this opacity a little bit to make it more believable? So I'm going to drop it down. And as you can see, the lower I bring it, the more kind of believable it gets. I'm going to do it at 25%. Okay, it's kind of believable. Still a little bit not convincing. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this layer blending mode, and I'm going to try hard mix. Okay, so now it really kind of looks like it could work there for me. This I'd be happy with.